I am going to call the meeting of Personnel Administrative Affairs Committee to order. Today is Monday, December 4th. It is 7:01 p.m. and we are in the Aldermanic Chamber. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman at Large Shoshana Kelly, Chairwoman.
I'm here.
Alderman at Large Ben Clemens, Vice Chair.
Here.
Alderman Tyler Govea.
Here.
Alderman Tom Lopez. Alderman Derek Tebow is here. Also in attendance, we have Mayor Jim Donchis and Director Lisa Foto on Zoom.
Alderman Lopez did let me know that he was running a few minutes behind, so we'll just keep an eye out for him. Okay. First order of business is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak this evening? I don't see many of you out there. Communications?
We have none.
Interviews?
Board of Building and Fire Code Appeals, we have Jaron Slattery, new appointment, term to expire November 13th, 2026, 17 Berkeley Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03064.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Donchis, would you like to introduce?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here to introduce Jaron Slattery for the Building Code Board of Appeals. Mr. Slattery is a principal of Etchstone Properties, which a developer builder, very familiar with building code issues. He's been active in the community in a number of ways. He is on the Business and Industrial Development Authority, but we approached him to be on the Building Code Board of Appeals so that we could get some knowledgeable people. We're trying to fill that board. And what happens is if someone wants to disagree with a determination of the the building code, the building inspectors, they can appeal to this appeals board. Mr. Slattery is a graduate of Georgia University with a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture and Golf Course Design. He was on the Georgia varsity football team, and he was just telling me that they did what's the nickname of the Georgia team?
Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs lost to Alabama this past weekend, and that is a sad turn of events. But I'm glad to be introducing Mr. Slattery for this position, and I'm sure he'll do a outstanding job. And with that, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Slattery and get his. Ask him why he agreed to serve as a member of this board.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Donchis, and thank you to the committee for having me tonight. Jaron Slattery, 17 Berkeley Street, Etchstone Properties. I'm now I guess you'd call it the de facto president. I've been with the company since 2004. It was founded by my father, who passed away in 2020. So we kind of reshuffled some things, and now I find myself reluctant to call myself the president of the company. So we are a residential builder, real estate development company here based in Nashua, 179 Amherst Street, with the primary or bulk of our business in southern New Hampshire, but some into Mass. So yeah, I was approached by both Matt Sullivan and Bill McKinney. My father did serve on this appeals board for years. I think last month's meeting, when you guys heard Scott Cody speak, my father was on that board at the same time. I think they served on it for a number of years. I don't know that they ever heard a case. It'll be interesting to see how many come in front of the board. I know there's an active one now. That's why this board needs to be kind of reinvigorated here. So when Bill reached out to me, I told him I would happily do it. I think our portfolio of work here in the city gives us a pretty broad knowledge of both the IBC and the IRC. I'm happy to, the city has always been very fair with us, building department, engineering, planning, everybody we've worked with. So when they reached out, I was happy to be able to help them and give back a little bit in whatever capacity they need. So I think that's probably about it.
Great, thank you. I'll take questions from the committee. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I remember you from the other interview you had with us before, so impressive resume. I thank you for stepping up. Also, just wanted to recognize Alderman Lopez came in at 7:02. So I'm impressed by this. Go Bulldogs. I hate Alabama, so it would have been nice if they could have beat them. But thank you for stepping up. We do need to fill this board, and I appreciate any volunteers we get, and you certainly qualify for this role. So thank you.
Alderman Clevens.
Yeah, just want to basically echo the same comments. I appreciate the fact that you were able to step forward into this. I think with your knowledge and experience, both from working with, in the private sector, but then also just knowing the city codes and knowing how the city works, I think you'll bring a lot of knowledge to this and be able to adjudicate something very, a situation very well. So thank you for stepping forward.
Any additional questions from the committee? All right, thank you, Mr. Slattery. We'll be taking up your appointment in the next portion of the meeting.
Mr. Mahfouz was unavailable, so we're going to move to the Housing Trust Fund Committee. Yafrizi Castillo, new appointment, term to expire December 12th, 2026, 23 Dexter Street, Nashua, New Hampshire, 03060.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am nominating Jafrezi Castillo Pina for the Housing Trust Fund to fill the lived experience position on that board. Ms. Castillo Pina was a graduate of Nashua High back in 2012, also the Nashua Community College, and more recently Southern New Hampshire University. She currently works for the school department as a family engagement person. Her job is to engage with Spanish-speaking families to make sure that they understand what's happening with the school district and with their children, and help them in any way that they need with the school department. But in addition to that, she has worked with a number of people who have trouble, given the affordable housing situation, to find adequate housing. Most of the people she deals with are Spanish-speaking, so they need, given maybe not full use of the English language, they need help of someone who can talk for them and help translate everything that's happening. So she's been very helpful in seeking housing for some of the people whose children go to Nashua Public Schools. So given all that background and her commitment to Nashua, the fact that she grew up here at the south end of Chestnut Street makes her very well suited to serve as the lived experience person on the Housing Trust Fund, and therefore I recommend her to you very strongly.
Great. Would you like to give us a quick
Good
introduction?
evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here today. And like you explained, so I've been living in Nashua for over 20 years. And I lived at the end of Chestnut Street with my dad and two sisters. We were living in a situation where we had to move in with my uncle because my dad couldn't afford to rent his own place. Eventually, he got two jobs and we were able to move in. But it was the situation where my dad had to work two jobs to be able to afford housing. And I feel like today is similar to the same situation where we have a lot of family that either have to move in with somebody else to be able to afford housing, or they just can't afford housing because it has been extremely expensive.
Okay. Questions from the committee? Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Ms. Castillo Pina, for stepping up and doing this. I lived on Chestnut Street when I was 10, so and I can understand the housing crisis we're in. So to have somebody that's lived it and is in it and sees the great work that you're doing with the schools and the great work you're doing, I think will just add to this committee. So I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that we got such a strong candidate, so thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez.
So I was looking at your resume as part of the preparation process, and it seems like you've done a lot with your time in a short amount of time under very difficult circumstances, which I think is important because that's what we need to do with the Housing Trust Fund. It started as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It started as a recognition that we had a pending housing shortage or housing crisis, and that we need to do more to build that capacity. And even since we started it, the presentation of the situation has ballooned. So you definitely have your work cut out for you. I know through interviewing multiple other members of the Housing Trust Committee, they also have life experience, so you won't be alone in that particular way. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do and how you can help us navigate out of this immediate situation. So thank you for stepping forward.
Thank you.
Other committee members? I just wanted to say thank you for coming forward and to the mayor for filling this position. I am on the Housing Trust Fund, and it's an incredible group of people who are trying to really come at this from all different angles and come up with solutions. And we've done a lot of really long night conversations about how can we turn the tide here in the city, and the lived experience appointee is really important for giving us some of that background, some of us who don't have it. So I am excited to have you join us.
Thank you.
If we are all set, we will.
All right,
take a
well,
break
thank you,
right
Madam
after
Chair.
this. And Bill Berry's not able to come as well.
Yep, Blueberry's unavailable.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes.
So, if I could for just a moment, I know that Mr. Barry could not be here this evening, but I'm hoping that the committee will indulge the appointment without an interview. And the reason that I mention this is because I think Mr. Barry's reputation precedes him. I think most people know of him. He's a very good candidate for this, for anything really that you would appoint him to. But more importantly, there's a timing issue. They need that appointee on there for a meeting that they're having next Wednesday. So if we can get the appointment through, he can take office and be at that meeting. Otherwise, what's gonna happen is it could be delayed and cause some issues. I don't foresee the Board of Aldermen not appointing Mr. Barry, but, I would make a motion to approve the appointment of William H. Barry to the 201 Main Street Real Estate Corporation.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on the motion. All right, all those in favor?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Oh, you got your hand, Tom?
Yeah, I was just gonna plus one, my fellow aldermen's awareness that this is a very well-known and, I guess, he's very well-known in the community. He works hard in a lot of different areas. I don't know him personally, like on any particular level, but I've definitely worked with him through the different boards and things he's doing, and I would definitely be comfortable with this nomination.
Anyone else? Okay. It's a little out of order, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Application to license hawkers, peddlers, itinerant vendors license.
There is none.
Is there ever any? Appointments by the mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to recommend the following new appointment to the Board of Building and Fire Codes Appeals, Jaren Slattery, with a term to expire November 13th, 2026. I also like to recommend the following reappointments to the Business and Industrial Development Authority, Lydia J. Foley, with a term to expire September 13th, 2026, and Mark Prohlman, with a term to expire April 30th, 2026. Also to recommend the following reappointments to the National Housing and Redevelopment Authority, Paul DeShanes, with a term to expire October 13th, 2028, James Tolner with a term to expire October 14th, 2026, and Eric R. Wilson with a term to expire October 14th, 2027. And also to recommend the following new appointment to the Housing Trust Fund Committee, Euphrasie Castillo with a term to expire December 12th, 2026.
You've heard the motion. Discussion on the motion. I'm gonna actually start because I know that we have gone back and forth on whether reappointments we want to have come in. So I just want to mention that those are reappointments that we didn't necessarily discuss. If everyone's fine with that, it's great, but just wanted to bring that up. Alderman Tebow?
I mean, I'm okay with this, but I think at some point we got to maybe, and I've talked to at least, I think Alderman Lopez maybe, or about, we may want to, in the future, maybe kind of change the way we do that, and certain reappointments we may want to, I mean, some of these people were appointed years and years ago before the board that we currently have is in effect. So I don't know, at some point, maybe we want to try to re-interview them, but at this point, for the ones we have on here today, I'm fine with for now.
Alderman Lopez?
Yeah, to that point, I would definitely agree that Alderman Tebow has represented my position. Not because there's necessarily anything like dubious about some of these people, but like using Lydia Foley as an example, she could educate us a lot as to what BIDA is doing and what their current activities are. Additionally, I thought the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, it might be good to bring someone in from them just to kind of give us an idea. So as an alternative to maybe introducing people in for reappointment, given that we didn't really have time, maybe it would be better for the chair if we were able to pick a couple of committees that we wanted to know about and have them present at times where we're not, in the holiday season and other things are going on.
Alderman Lopez, go ahead, Alderman Clements. I'll wait until the end.
Sure, I actually think that is probably a better use of our time than to have multiple people from different committees come up. I'm guessing that there's probably 25 to 30 committees that we appoint folks to, so I would think, if we picked the ones that we were most interested in as a committee, we could get some of those folks here, maybe on a night where the agenda wasn't too packed, or if we did a special meeting or something like that, then I think that's a good idea.
Alderman Lopez, you beat me to the punch because I was thinking the same thing. The way that you've been doing human affairs where you have someone come in and just talk when it's not necessarily anything on the agenda, but keeping us up on what these committees are doing. So I think that is actually the right way to approach it, because also we're not coordinating 10 people's reappointments. So yeah, I think that's perfectly fine, and we should come up with a list together, and maybe we can do that in general discussion. So the motion on the floor is to recommend the following appointments, which I'm not going to read, but all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Unfinished business.
There is none.
New business resolutions.
None.
New business ordinances.
We have O-23-066, increasing sewer use fees, rates, and charges. I'd like to make the motion to recommend final passage.
Thank you, Alderman Tebow. I believe that we have some city officials on Zoom who want to speak to this. Director Photo, did you want to start?
Sure. Thank you, Alderwoman Kelly. My name is Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works. With me this evening are Frank Gayott from Hazen and Sawyer, our consultant, Carolyn O'Connor, DPW Finance and Administration Manager, and Dave Boucher, our wastewater superintendent. We are here to speak to Ordinance 23-066, which as you mentioned, is before you this evening. This ordinance is intended to support the ongoing cost of operation of the wastewater treatment plant. We did provide a presentation on the rate study to the full board on Tuesday, November 14th. So I will just give a brief overview and then open to questions if that's okay. We used a sophisticated rate model to determine the proposed rates. The data sources used were usage data for fiscal year 2022, fiscal year 2024 budgeted expenses, fiscal year 2022 and 2023 actual revenue and expenses, updated sewer rates from January 1st, 2022, planned future 2024 through 2045 wastewater treatment plan improvement projects, and updated operating and capital equipment reserve fund balance. The current wastewater billed rate is $30.99 per month. We're proposing an increase of 15% as of April 1st, 2024, or that would equate to $35.64 a month. A 10% increase on January 1st, 2025, and that would equate to a $39.20 per month increase. I'm sorry, billable rate, not increase. And a 10% increase on January 1st, 2026, which would result in a billing amount of $43.12 per month. And with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Other questions from the committee? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions because I think you answered my questions in that presentation back in, I think it was in either October or November, you stated that. But what I will say is that I like this legislation. It's a new approach. It's what we asked for, actually. Because a few years ago, the constant thing was we were constantly playing catch up, and then it would come and it would be too late because, you know, to come in the middle of the year, condo associations already budgeted their budgets for this kind of thing. And, you know, and it just created a lot of chaos. What I like about this is we're planning ahead. We know what our expenses roughly are going to be. We know what projects are coming down the pipeline. And as far as for planning purposes, especially for the condo associations, people will know. Here's the schedule. This is what it is. This is what you can anticipate, what you can budget for. I think it's very orderly. I like it. We also, of course, can always come back and address it again if we need to adjust it. But I really like this approach. I want to thank everybody who was involved with this for doing this. You heard what we had to say, and I appreciate the work that went into it, and I certainly will support this.
Alderman Tebow, then Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, I'm sure anytime we increase anything, we're gonna take a hit on it somewhere. I mean, we barely raised the taxes, and I'm still hearing that we raised taxes. So, my question is, if this doesn't pass, what happens? And I know the rates would stay the same, but my point is, I guess, if we did not do this, what's the impact to you guys in the wastewater department? Like, what happens?
Director
Well, at some point, and I can let Carolyn O'Connor chime in as well, but at some point we will not have enough money to be able to continue to operate and do the capital projects that we need to maintain the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. O'Connor, did you want to add to that, or?
No, that sums it up, that you're gonna run into the negative if we're forecasting out, trying to keep us in a good shape to be able to do the many capital projects we'll have coming up.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez, then
So-
Alderman Govea.
I do not like a rate increase, but I also know we should not mess with wastewater treatment. There's a lot of different areas where we can be a little more austere or even creative, but I mean, if that isn't happening, then we have a multitude of public health issues very, very rapidly piling up. So I think we need to make sure that it is an effectively funded program, and I think it is, you know, the stewardship that we have through DPW has made sure that that's the case. And as my colleague mentioned earlier, the only caveat I would add to that is periodically we wait too long and we end up giving the residents sticker shock. And particularly with today's markets and expenses and you know, housing, the lack of housing security people are experiencing, they can't have some of their bills go up rapidly. And I know Alderman Dowd brought up in a previous meeting the concerns of the condo associations, and that's fair. I'm glad that that we're doing this in a way that will allow them to mass manage the expenses. But I also worry about the people who don't have the extra money in their bottom line and need an incremental approach. And I think over the past years, the increases have been kind of draconian, like they've been big. So I am also glad that we are finally coming up with a strategy that will increase and provide the resources that we need to take away the stuff that we don't need. And I think this is, even if it's not palatable per se, the money would probably have to come out of somewhere else anyway. And I'd rather do it in a controlled and intentional manner where we can track the revenue and we can track the line item than just, okay, I guess we have to fund the department out of the general budget.
All set, Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Cavea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just looking at the 3 years and the rate increases, why 15% in the first year, and why wasn't that spread out, say 1.6% over the 3 years instead to kind of make it a more even increase? Why an extra 5 on the first year of rates?
Well, and again, Frank Ayotte is here, and he did a very sophisticated model for us that showed us what we needed. But we haven't had an increase in a while, Alderman Gouveia. We didn't have an increase last year. We probably should have, but we had some capital projects that we needed to get a better handle on. So that's why there's a larger increase in the upcoming fiscal year, and then we tailor it down. We're hoping. And I don't want to say this for sure, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to have even smaller increases in future years. But we'll have to make that determination in the coming years. There's a lot of things that factor into this also. Requirements are getting more and more stringent, which are requiring us to do more and more. So it really will depend on DES and EPA and what some of our permits will bring in the future. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
All set, Alderman Cavea. I have two things. So I thought that the presentation that you brought to the full board was exceptional, and it really explained your method to get to this rate, and I agree with the incremental approach here. We've definitely seen it in other departments where we haven't done it for a while, and then it is a sticker shock. My question is, why 3 years and not 5 or something like that? Is there a reason why you stuck with 3?
Yes, there is a reason why we stuck with 3. We were concerned about going too far into the future, Alderwoman Kelly. We don't know. As I just mentioned, we are trying. We're hoping that the rates will come down a bit in year 4 and 5 and beyond. But it's hard to predict that far out. So we feel comfortable with the next 3 years, and this is something that we plan to revisit every year, and we'll bring back to you as we have more information.
Great. My second question was just the presentation that you gave. This is more clerical, but I would love to have it attached in the minutes to this meeting. So if anyone in the public is interested in the previous meeting that we all got all that information, they have it as well.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that happens.
Great. Any additional questions from the committee? Okay, motion on the floor is to recommend final passage of O-23-066. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries, and I'll go to the full board.
Thank you very much.
Of course, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Tabled in committee. Alderman Cavea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to remove O-22-031 from the table.
That is non-debatable. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Alderman Cavea, would you like to? Oh, I guess we now have to
Sure.
make a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on O-22031, increasing the veterans optional and all veterans tax credits. I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage.
The motion on the floor is to recommend final passage. I assume there'll be some discussion on this motion. Alderman Gouveia, would you like to start?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I've really wanted to get this passed, and I did last time, and have talked with Director Cummings as well as Jennifer Zins, the assessing manager, today and over the past days to really see a sense of numbers, and if we can can pass this to give us kind of a more data points. So I do have some new numbers to give out to everybody that I got this morning. For 2023, for new credits, the all vet credit, there was 24 new receivers of that credit, and that equated to about $12,000. And then there were 78 new to the other vet credit, which equated to about $39,000. And so 2023 for total, like the total amount of people receiving these credits, the all vet credit was 1,951. That equated to 128,500. And then the other vet credit that is received by 258 individuals, which equated to 976,210. So those are kind of the new stats I have now that showed how many new appliers were granted. And I think one of my larger takeaways from these numbers was how many people don't get the full amount of the credit. Clearly, when we look at our all vets credit, we have 1,951 people. If they were all to take $500, that's 975,000-ish. Right now, we're only paying out 128.5. So it seems to be about a tenth of what that total value would be. So I would like to see this ordinance go forward and at least go up for a vote in front of the full Board of Aldermen. I understand the concerns brought forward by our colleague from Ward 3 at previous meetings. But I think seeing the statistics we have now, we can make a better judgment call on this. And I understand the state changed some definitions, and what I would hate to see is this legislation and this benefit kind of get stuck in the same spot while we wait for 3, 4, 5, 6 years to see if there even is a ripple effect from the legislative changes up in Concord. I think this is something that we could pass. We could get it done, and then if we need to revisit it at a later date, we could do so. So I just wanted to at least have this conversation tonight as we kind of end the end of 2023 and see if this is something that our committee and the rest of our board would be interested in passing.
Alderman Faya, before we go on, can you just repeat your numbers to me for a moment?
Sure,
I
I
wanna-
absolutely can, and I can send this email around to our
I'm just trying to get a
committee as well.
general sense of
Yeah.
percent of whole it went up. So
Sure.
you said for the two different ones, I got what the new ones were, but what were the totals? If you could-
Sure. So the totals for the all vet credit, that's 1,951.
Yep,
And then for the other vet credit, that's 258. And I did those numbers earlier. I believe that's a 1.2% increase on the all vets credit and a 43% on the other vet credit,
okay. Thank you.
roughly.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this was my original legislation, and I think, you know, the issue we had obviously was the change in the state regulations. You know, the worry is that we're gonna put more burden on other taxpayers who aren't veterans. And so that's a concern, and it's a valid concern, certainly. But we also, at the same time, wanna make sure that we're helping people that need it. And granted that sometimes these credits or these exemptions or discounts or whatever you call them end up helping people that don't need them. You know, like the national COVID stuff. People got money that didn't really need the money, but sometimes that happens, but you're also in the same process helping people that do need it. And, you know, I was at the Pearl Harbor Memorial Day remembrance on Sunday morning, and I talked to some vets. It was actually a 98-year-old World War II veteran that was there, and he was sharper than probably I am, and doing great. And I talked to a couple of vets, and they needed the money. They needed the tax credit, and so, you know, it's probably good legislation, and I get that it may not do what everybody wants, but at the same time, I think it helps more people than it would hurt. So I think that, you know, I'll probably look to support it unless I hear other things that make me think otherwise. Thank you.
Alderman Clemmons, then Alderman Lopez.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've supported this in the past. I've supported trying to move it forward anytime it's been taken off the table or discussed. I did actually make the original motion to table it to the April meeting so we could get more statistics, and I was comfortable with moving it forward after that point, but we chose to table it. So I said it then and I'll say it now, our veterans are worth it. We should be wanting to support our veterans. We should be wanting to help them in any way that we can. And I think this goes a long way to make Nashua a place where veterans will want to come to live and to establish, a home once they are done serving for us. And, I think it's a good thing. So I'm going to support this, and I hope that the Board of Aldermen passes it.
Great. Alderman Lopez?
I just wanted to clarify some of the concerns that were brought up because they haven't been explicitly stated, and my colleague can definitely correct if I'm wrong, but my understanding of the reasons that we were concerned about the state changing some definitions was because they widened the definition of veteran considerably. They did include other branches, a branch, I guess, that was being neglected, even if it's not necessarily traditionally a military role per se. It has been used more recently in those particular areas. And then they also expanded the definition of veterans to include people who basically have completed basic training rather than completing their tour of duty and that type of thing. So it wasn't, as I understood it, that we were worried about wordsmithing or definitions or anything like that. The state of New Hampshire significantly changed the definition of veterans, and that created a potential problem on our side where a lot more people could be eligible. Hearing the numbers, I'm still willing to move it to the full board myself. I am encouraged by all of the support for veterans being expressed in this room tonight because I think other legislation could potentially impact them. So I'm glad that we are focusing on the needs of our veteran community. As has been pointed out, I think it's important for them to be part of our community. While we have issues with housing access because of housing stock, it's that much more important to make sure that people can hold on to their homes and be able to continue to be part of our community. So I think this goes a way towards that. I do think there's some risk of shifting tax burdens to other places, but I also think our job as aldermen is to be, effective in figuring out what we're spending money on and what we need to be spending money on, and even where we can identify revenue opportunities and resources so that the city isn't running exclusively on tax funding from our residents. So I will support this. I think it's going to have a much larger discussion in the full board, but I mean, I think they want to shoot it down before Christmas, so we'll see how that goes.
Alderman Tebow?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So two things. One, I don't know of any cities or towns, I think, that do the 750. I think we would be the leader in the state on the veterans tax credit, which I think is also a good thing, to show that we are in the front of all of this and we do care about our veterans. The other thing, and I'm going to ask Alderman Gouveia through the chair, can we get Director Cummings or Ms. Zins here for the meeting? Because I guarantee if we don't have somebody other than, and no offense to you, explaining the numbers part of it, I think we're going to get pushback on it. So if they could come and explain it, it would make it easier probably for it to get passed, I'm guessing.
I was actually going to make the comment that we should put the information that you gave to us into a memo, whether it's from Tim or you, but so that it goes along with this legislation at the Board of Aldermen. But I also want to say I've been a sponsor from the beginning. I think this is good legislation. We've talked about it extensively in here and what the potentials were. And, the homework was done in terms of what has happened this year. And I'm going to support putting this to the full board as well. Alderman Gouveia?
So as I'm sensing the vibe of the committee here, I'm going to offer a amendment to it, which just moves the effective dates from April 1st, 2023 to April 1st, 2024.
Okay.
That way, so we're not passing legislation with an effective date that already happened, so.
Okay.
This would be amending, both the optional veteran tax credit and the all veterans tax credit to have an effective date of April 1, 2024.
You've heard the motion to amend. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think we then have to move to send it as amended.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion for O-22-031, increasing the veterans optional and all veterans tax credit as amended.
Recommend final passage, yes.
Recommend final passage as amended.
Okay, great. You've heard the motion. Any additional discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. That'll go to the full board. Thank you for bringing that forward, Alderman Gouveia. We have no public here anymore. General discussion. Alderman Lopez.
The chair graciously invited us to identify committees that we would like to hear from, so I'm here to do that. I have heard from the Cultural Connections Committee and the National Arts Commission that they both would like an opportunity to present, so I would definitely recommend inviting them. But I personally would like to hear from BIDA and New Hampshire Housing Redevelopment Authority, just because we have so many issues that are associated with housing and economic development and all that type of stuff. I think they could probably educate us a lot as to things going on and how we can be contributing.
What was your first one? You said Arts Commission and,
National Arts Commission and the Cultural Connections Committee.
thank you. You were talking so fast. I got it. Other comments or thoughts there? I mean, I have a few that I would like to hear from. Go ahead, Alderman Clemens.
No, I think that's a good start. Those were the one, if you had asked me, those were the ones that I would have picked, so.
We did ask you.
Well, you got to it first.
I could add one, probably.
Okay, Alderman Tebow.
I'll add one that you are part of, the Energy Committee. I would love to hear about that, obviously. You know, I work for an energy company, so I might as well hear about what we're doing for the city, especially, you know, if rates are going up or anything like that.
I think that'd be a good one. That was on my list. And then potentially early right now, but if we start to plan these out based on the meetings that we have monthly, maybe there's one per meeting, I'd love to have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Committee come forward and talk about the work. We're still very much trying to, you know, put the policy together, but I think it would be good to hear from them maybe mid-next year. Alderman Gouveia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's a great list of committees and commissions to take a look at. I would just kind of recommend that we kind of limit it to probably one per meeting, just
Yeah.
because
I
I
agree.
could see some of these
Before
conversations
marathons,
being
yeah.
rather lengthy, and
Yeah.
it would, if we're doing 2 or 3 in a night and then interviews and any other legislation, that could get kind of lengthy. So I think limiting it to one, and we can really focus on what they're doing, and that could be very helpful.
I think that's perfect, and that's actually what I was thinking. We can look at it, I get the agenda first, so if it looks like a long agenda, maybe we don't necessarily have this portion of the evening, but we can, 15 minutes is what I was thinking, max
That'd
here.
be perfect.
And then we have time for questions. So I will have Donna help me reach out to the chairs of all these committees and let them know that we'd like them to come before us. And I will also put out there that if you guys have additional ones that come up that you'd like to add, then send me a note. We'll get that going. Any other general discussion? Would anyone like to make remarks? Alderman Gouveia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank the committee today for the Veterans Tax Credit. Thank you, Alderman Tebow, for bringing it in, and the rest of the committee for humoring my discussion tonight. And it's one of those priorities for me, just like when we did the elderly one, to also make sure our veterans are taken care of. And I think this is a great step in the right direction, so I just want to thank everybody here.
Great. Alderman Lopez.
Yeah, regarding veterans, I almost forgot to say, if anybody sees that little basket outside the mayor's office, he's one of the drop-off locations for Operation Enduring Welcome. We're doing our annual Floor Wars competition, where we did a decorating of the common area at Delena's house on the morning of the stroll, but the building's too big for like a volunteer crew to decorate it, so the veterans do it, but we need to make sure they have supplies and resources, and it's a big building, so Anybody interested in donating supplies, I think we're looking mostly for wreaths, garlands, Christmas lights, that kind of stuff. Feel free to check out that location or any of the other ones. We're also looking for gift cards for prizes for the Christmas party. And anybody who wants to sponsor a meal for a vet, you can find all that stuff on Involve to Impact's website, involvetoimpact.org, or just go to the mayor's office and there's a basket with information right next to it. It just kind of helps make people feel a little more welcome, increase the holiday cheer. And I mean, I find personally, it really makes my holiday come together to do stuff like that. So definitely everyone's invited. On a slightly more somber note, we are also doing the longest night vigil on December 21st. It's our annual observance of the struggles faced by people who are homeless. So that will be 6 p.m. at City Hall Plaza outside on December 21st.
Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Like I had mentioned earlier, I was at the Remembrance for Pearl Harbor Day. The one thing that concerned me is that the amount of people that were there, especially outside of veterans, was very small. Even the veterans was small. And part of that, I think, is the fact that just no information gets out as much. The only reason I even knew what was going on is because the little snippet we get in email where the mayor is. And I was like, oh, the mayor's gonna be here at the Remembrance? I probably should go to that. I'd like to go to that. That's something that interests me, and I was open for time, and I could do it, so I went. And it was a nice event, and somber, and I didn't know they were gonna shoot guns, but that was interesting. I'm sure people, if they didn't know that was going on, probably were a little surprised by that. I did see on Facebook, what were those 4 shots? But without a paper, information just getting out to the public, I mean, that email that tells us that it's happening from the mayor's office doesn't get out to the public. And I can tell my 200-300 people I have on my email list, but we have 90,000 people. So it's not that I'm disappointed that people weren't there. I'm disappointed that more people didn't know about it. And I honestly don't know how to get stuff out there like that, because that's not a public record thing that you have to put out, right? There's no rule that you have to put something like that out. That's what a newspaper is for, and we don't have one here. And that to me is a bummer, but it was a nice event that I was glad to go. I didn't know it ever happened. I guess the mayor was telling me he went for the last 8 years. So I guess it's been a thing. So thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
It's really interesting. I think there's an opportunity for a nonprofit or someone in the community to create a community calendar where some of the stuff could live. But yeah, it's tough. You don't always know what's what, and we have the most information at our fingertips. So, Alderman Lopez.
I volunteer Paul Shea in Great American Downtown to do that.
I thought about that. I was gonna say, in case Paul is now very frustrated with us, but I'll talk to him. Alderman Clemens.
Motion to adjourn.
The motion is to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your time. We are adjourned at 7:40. That's what it is.
We are off.